We're here for St. Michael's, as you might have guessed by now, and we're going to do a visual history of St. Michael's. So, what's the idea here? Well, the idea here is, what do we know about St. Michael's? We mainly know this picture on the left here. So, what do we see? We see this dark, huge, forbidding building on the crest of a huge lawn, no sign of life around it. So, that just doesn't tell us much, obviously. Or today we know it as the St. Michael's Farm Preserve. And that's a great area. There's trees, there's fields, there's walking trails, a huge area, but there's no remnant, almost no remnant of what was once there. So tonight we're going to correct all that, and your eyes will be opened a little bit. So if you go walk there, you'll see a little bit more than you saw yesterday. You're welcome. So the trouble with St. Michael's is it's just a big topic. It's humongous in all different dimensions. It was there for 3/4 of a century. It's a big building, could house up to 450 people. And you see the picture there, just a huge complex, not just the building you see from the street, but the buildings behind it, and a large property, more than 400 acres, with an entire farm operation there as well. You'll see more on that later. And there were a large group of people involved. There were children there, obviously, 100, 200, 300, 400 at a time. The sisters who operated and staffed the facility, 10 to 20 to 30 at a time, resident staff, the farm workers, the farm families, and then day workers, day staff, and also day students, because the school was also open for day students as well. So it's a big story, and there are a lot of stories and there are a lot of memories. And some people who went to St. Michael's are very grateful for that experience. And at the other extreme, some people are very angry about that experience. So what we're doing at the Historical Society as part of our oral history project is interviewing people. So we want to interview, record, preserve, and not lose those stories so that they're archived and saved. So, not so subtle hint, if you have such stories and memories, or you know people who do, please get in touch and we'll be happy to do more interviews, which we're continuing anyway. And doing these interviews actually was part of the motivation for this research and this talk tonight, because these people kept talking about stuff and I had no clue what they were talking about, because you only know the front of the building, right? So they would talk about, oh, for example, we went out to the pavilion on the girls' side. What's that about, right? Or they would say, yeah, the farmers left the eggs on the fire escape on the back of the building. So what's that about? Or my all-time favorite, we went into the basement to the swimming pool. Yes, there was a swimming pool in the basement in early 1900s in St. Michael's. Amazing. And wouldn't it be cool to have some pictures of that? Oh, well. So the goal here is to have sort of this baseline of understanding, use a whole lot of pictures from a whole lot of contributors to try to make sense of the facility so we can talk about it and do more work on it. And you'll see hints and examples of that as we go forward. So that leads to the not so subtle subtext of this presentation, which is, please help us save Hopewell history. People have memories, they have photos, they have documents, they have artifacts, and they're in boxes, they're in the shelf, they're in the cellar. And if we don't pay attention to them, they'll be lost. And in fact, earlier this year, we had not just one, but 2 different collections of material arrived from people who dumpster dived decades ago, saved a bunch of stuff, and then have finally passed them on. That's not a way to preserve history. Dumpster diving can't be the right answer for preserving history, okay? So please get in touch and help us save this stuff. So the vehicle to do that, Barbara mentioned, is the Hopewell Valley History Project. It's just a volunteer effort with the help of some 140 individual contributors. We're just grabbing up as much Hopewell history as we can, digitizing it, scanning it, photographing it, archiving it digitally, getting it online on the History Project site. Barbara already gave you the stats for all the cool stuff we already have there over the past 5 years. And the other thing that lets us do is research reports. So there's about 40 Hopewell history briefs, research on Hopewell up there right now, and 8 presentations like this one. The last one was the quarry, for example. So for St. Michael's, I have 2 history briefs in preparation. They should be up soon. There are already 200 some photos from our contributors. There's a bunch of documents with more coming, and the video of this talk will be up there as well. So plenty of stuff to find. So if you have stuff, if you know people who have stuff, please get in touch. We'll do whatever it takes to digitize it. You get back digital copies of all your stuff. That's sort of handy. And if you're done with it, we can help pass it on to the proper archive, which is one of the 3 sponsors tonight, probably the library, the museum, or the historical society. Okay, so that's the pitch. You're welcome. Thank you. I should say thank you. So here we go. The entire history of St. Michael's on one page. You're welcome. Or we could look at pictures too. Shall we do that a little bit later? All right. So just to give you the context and sort of what was happening in the world at the time. So the original building was built in 1898 and started with 110 children and 12 sisters. It was known as the St. Michael Orphan Asylum and Industrial School. It was an asylum in the sense that it was intended as a temporary refuge for orphaned and abandoned children. Times were tough. People had trouble earning money and surviving by themselves, much less with a bunch of kids. Disease epidemics was a huge problem, and we didn't have the medicine that we have now. So a parent would die, both parents would die. And, you know, if you're a father left with 5 kids, you can't possibly work full-time, multiple jobs, and take care of those kids. So that's what we mean by abandoned children. Those people ended up at St. Michael's. It was also a grammar school and a nursery and a full-up school for day students as well. Then there was this long period of expansion in the first half of the 1900s. You'll meet all of these things as we go forward. So a chapel and a laundry was added in the back, and the number of children by 1905 was up to 150 to 200 kids. By 1910, definitely up to 200 kids. These numbers come from census records. We have census records that list every child at St. Michael's every 10 years, so that's pretty cool. 1915, World War I, influenza, and lots more kids coming to this building. So they built their first expansion known as the North Wing. It's on the left side. As you look at the building, you'll see much more of it later. Up to 250 children. Also more younger children and babies coming, so that drove the need as well. In 1920 was the parochial school, and up to 300 kids. 1922, they built a separate building in the back, the gymnasium auditorium. 1930, during the Depression, still more kids, so they built the other wing, which you'll see, and they were peaking at around 370 plus children, plus many more in the building as well, the workers and whatever. And even in the 1940s, stabilizing around 200 children, but there were additional improvements and repairs during World War II. Then came a period of decline. Society changed. Disease wasn't quite the same problem. There was more of a social safety net, and fostering, as opposed to dumping children in orphanages, became a better way of handling children. So the number of children started declining in the 50s. There were no more orphans at that time either. So 200 to about 150, but still lots of children in the school there, which is sort of interesting. These numbers come from the Sisters of St. Francis, which was the order that operated and staffed, and they have annual records of the people working in the building and the children in the school. 1960s, the number continues to decline, 130, 158. And there was more demand from the state of New Jersey to host special needs children, small children with serious problems, wards of the state. So St. Michael's was adjusting itself from an orphanage to a care center, basically. But by 1973, the church decided the building was just not sustainable. It was too expensive to run. It was much too expensive to imagine renovating, and who knew what to do with it anyway, I suppose. And at that point, they were down to 56 children. So the building was closed, demolished, all that structure was wiped from the space. The farm actually continued operating a little further. And then in 2010, the DNR Greenway took over the property as the St. Michael's Farm Preserve. So that's a big picture. So you know all the pieces. Now let's go meet them all, okay? Next. So what are we talking about? We're talking about this space, this green space in the bottom right. So that's today's St. Michael's Farm Preserve. And up above is Hopewell Borough, which you may recognize. So the Farm Preserve starts at the south border of Hopewell Borough and continues south down to the outskirts of Mount Rose. It's pretty big. And then it goes on the left side, the west side from Hopewell Princeton Road to the right side, the east side, Aunt Molly Road. And you can see it extends past Aunt Molly Road in a couple places. So what does that look like as a preserve to explore? This is the DNR Greenways map. I should be saying next slide. Thank you. And so here's the same green area we saw in the previous slide. You can see the dotted lines. There are walking trails throughout the area. You can see the extent of this. And you can see the extensions that go past Aunt Molly Road. And there's a gap in between those two extensions. That's the Hopewell sewer plant, which explains why there are no walking trails through that area, I guess, right? What can I say? And the top left corner is the area we're interested in. That's where the building was, the orphanage building, the complex of buildings, and that's where the farm buildings were as well. So next slide is a close-up of that area, same map. So the farm buildings are off on the bottom right. The orphanage complex is within that dotted line at the bottom left. So there's 20-some acres there that had the building and other buildings and the entrance to the building. And that's just a big, big area compared to First Street, Second Street, and Prospect Street above in terms of the size. It's just amazing. And the dotted lines are walking trails here, but I've highlighted two of them because, next slide, this is a recent aerial of that area. It's in winter, so the trees are down so we can see through them. And what do you see here? You see a wooded area on the left and a very clear tree line on the right and below. And you see these two highlighted lines here. The blue highlighted line, which is a walking trail today, was an original road on the property. This was the access road that came along the top and then circled around behind the building and then down over to the farm. And the purple line coming in from the left, in and out, was the driveway of St. Michael's. So if you want to understand the scale of this place, you can go walk that driveway just to begin with. The top part of it is now grass. The bottom part is actually still asphalt, which is pretty neat. So you can walk in the entrance to St. Michael and imagine what it was like there. In the upper left there and the bottom left are two parking areas. The major public parking is in the bottom right, bottom left there. And the monumental sculpture that's been installed is past that. Also in the upper left is the grotto that I highlighted. The grotto is the last remaining non-trivial structure left from St. Michael's, and we'll meet that later. But now you know where it is. You're welcome. Next slide. So where was the building? Well, we'll go back to 1930. Here's an aerial. And highlighted up in there is the full building with both wings, which is getting close to the side of the entrance of the from the road. You know, it's pretty big. And you can also see additional buildings behind it that we'll meet later. So the building complex here extended out significantly beyond that. In the bottom center, I've marked the cemetery. There was a cemetery at St. Michael's. We'll come back to that later, but it's this 300 by 50 area down by the tree line below the building on this map. So the question is, how can you understand, visualize, feel the size of this building? So if you walk up the pathway and stand at the edge of the path there, at the entrance to where the building was. How do you think about how big that was? It's sort of hard to tell this way. So next slide. The answer is, think of a football field. So you walk up to the tip there, and you imagine yourself on the 50-yard line of a football field. You look 50 yards in each direction. You look 10 more yards to the end zone. It's bigger than that. It's 60 feet bigger than that. That's the extent of St. Michael's. You imagine a football field extended like that and raising up in the air 4 or 5 stories. That's how big St. Michael's was. And then as you stand there and look at the field there, the width of a football field is not enough to cover all the area of the complex. It's just absolutely astounding how big this area was. So, next slide. So let's look at the building, okay? So this is a 1948 photo taken looking over Princeton Road, basically. And there's the building. There are 2 wings. The one on the right is significantly bigger than the one on the left. And in the distance on the right is the farm. So you get a sense of the scope here. But an even more interesting view, next slide. This is a side view looking down from Mount Rose towards Hopewell. That's Hopewell in the distance. You can see the elementary school on the far left. And smack dead ahead is the edge-on view of the St. Michael's building. And what you notice is how far back that is from the road. It's a huge distance just back to the building. You compare that to the elementary school, which is set back from the road, but nothing like that. It's just absolutely amazing. So great. Next slide. So let's start walking around the building and understand the pieces of it. Eventually walk around the back and then go inside, okay? So here's the main building, 1898. Top right is actually a picture of the building under construction, which is just absolutely cool. You can see ladders going up and the windows are not in yet. We're just really lucky to have this. And the bottom left is the fully realized building without much foliage outside. And so what do you see? You see a series of projections and setbacks in this design. It's not just a big monolithic wall, which is nice. It's 4 stories on the 2 sides and then 5 stories in the center because you can see the attic area. The top was rooms as well. There's an entrance portal which leads into the front of the building. So that's another setback to make the building not seem quite so monumental. A lot of triangular peaks all the way around with crosses on the top, not surprisingly. A bell tower on the top, and that'll help us orient ourselves when we look at other pictures, but it does disappear later, unfortunately. And then the other thing is you can see that this site is sloped. There's more room under the basement windows on the left side than there are on the right side. And this is a huge deal as they started putting additions in and the ground was falling away rapidly. So you'll see the one addition has a whole nother story above ground where this part of the building has a basement. It's that much change. And the same thing happens in back as well. So in the bottom right is a Sanborn fire map, which has schematics of these buildings. And they luckily did a series of these during the construction of the different parts of the building. So I'll have those as we go along as well. So you get a sense of the building. So the setback on the back, for example, goes back much further than the front. Next slide. So here's the next wing, the north wing, also known as the girls' side, particularly among the kids. It was built in 1914 because there were lots more kids coming in. There were smaller kids coming in. So this was an area for girls, for kindergartens, for nurseries, for classrooms. And then they also put a pool in the basement. And again, if somebody had a picture of that, I would be very happy. Oh, well. And the other thing is the design clearly echoes the rest of the building. It's a bigger face, but it's the same general idea, stone below, brick above, all the rest of that. And the other thing you notice at the far left is it looks like scaffolding outside the side of the building. Those are fire escapes. They did put fire escapes on the side and the back. We'll see them later as well. in this very simple way. They were not doing anything fancy with fire escapes. And the other thing you may notice in the top right that's highlighted in that photo, they put another entrance portal in front of this piece of the building. And what exactly that was used for, don't know. In the bottom right, you see the schematic of the whole same thing. Next slide. South wing. Okay. So in the top right is the schematic. You can see the south wing. And this was motivated again by the demand for just more and more kids showing up. In particular, the top of this, the top stories were the boys' dormitory, and the bottom was where they consolidated the schooling. And you can see there's a corridor between the main building and this building. They didn't just glue the addition on, they separated it a bit, which also conveniently separates the boys from the girls in the school from the rest of the orphanage. So obviously made the others. The other interesting thing they did was the architecture of this. So the front still echoes the main building, except now there's two towers on the end, and you can see there are pyramids on top of the towers instead of the triangles we see everywhere else. And then behind, instead of having a rectangular building coming out, they built a V. They opened that building up to get more window space and more light in the building, which makes it really, really confusing when you're looking at photos of the ground level, as you will see. But this is what it looks like, okay? So as I said, they added the parochial school in 1920, and they added the gymnasium building behind in 1922. You can see it in the top right here, outlined, is the gymnasium building behind this addition, which had not been built yet. And you can see it in the aerial photo as well. Next slide. So let's just look at the gestalt of this building now. So you would describe this as Romanesque revival style. It's a common style for public institutions, like orphanages, like insane asylums, unfortunately. Heavy masonry, stone below, brick above. Nice entrance portals, this use of arches and corbels, the use of towers, which they used in the addition. This is all common for this architecture. So in the top right is the roof line as seen from Mount Rose. So you see triangle after triangle after triangle on the one side in that addition, and then on the right, you see the pyramids on the towers. So they're echoing, but making it slightly different. And then the bottom left, I had to glue this together from two different photos to get the whole sweep of the building without too many trees in between. And so follow the dotted line there. So the main building on the left has a bottom floor and it's stone. Follow the bottom line, the dotted line, there's a whole nother story below that in the other addition. So that's where the school was. And so they put the stone on the bottom story instead of aligning it with the stone of the main building, which makes sense, but on the other hand. So you just continue to get a sense of the way the slope is just moving around. Okay, next slide. So the front facades. So the top left here is the front of the main building at an angle. You can see the two entrance portals. You can see the addition on the left. The bottom right is this confusing view of these V-shaped buildings that come back. So if you look in the bottom right, behind the building, you can see some farm buildings and you can see some swings. And the swings are on a playground. We'll see them later. So that orients us. We're really pretty much back to the street, looking straight over there to the east. But this wing is coming out as a diagonal. And so when you look at a picture of this with trees and shadows, trying to put that all together gets really, really ugly, unfortunately. Next slide. So here's the front driveway, just some fun pictures. So the entrance closer to Hopewell swoops in and has a sidewalk next to it. And in the bottom left, you can see stones along the road as well. In the bottom right is a 1960 photo, which shows the piece of the driveway coming out on the other side. No sidewalk there, what can I say? And that asphalt is still there as well. So it's sort of fun. Next slide. Front entrance. So pictures over time, 1914, 1923, 1938, and 1973. So one thing you notice, the ivy comes and goes on the front of this building, and the trees change as well. It's really frustrating. They kept changing the landscaping of this building. So if you try to correlate photos by this tree's bigger now, it just doesn't work. Really frustrating. So top left, the entrance with a whole pile of children piled up in front. You can see the arched entrance, the portal coming out, the parapet above it, all that kind of thing. The second picture, top right, is the St. Michael's Band. And you can see more detail of the stonework on the side there because somebody took off the ivy. Bottom left, 1938, the ivy is back, but now we can see the side view, and you can see they have a curved arched design around the whole entrance area. And then the bottom right is at the closing in 1973, they have filled in this entry. They have enclosed this entry with glass for pretty obvious reasons, I would assume. And then the figure on the right is the statue of Jesus in front of the main entrance. And so again, that helps us correlate as well. And we'll see that on the next slide. Thank you. So here's 4 views looking towards the main entrance and looking at this statue. Top left, 1938. There's the statue, but there's so much vegetation around it. 1963, top right. This is the front of the building. You can see a flagpole, which is not centered in front of the building. And then the little figure in white there is the back of the statue in front of the building. And you can see how cleared out that area is now. Bottom left is 1972. The statue on the left, you can see the gap to the entrance from there and a whole bunch more trees. And then the bottom right are 2 examples of using different things on the campus for posing for pictures. So the bottom center is the last class at St. Michael's, and you can see how many kids graduating 8th grade there in 1972. And the bottom right is another family photo of the class in front of the statue. Next slide. Also in front of the building was a Celtic cross. The top left shows the cross from the street looking at the building. This cross was placed there around 1899 to honor Colonel Daniel Morris, who gave a lot of money to help build the building and then support the building after he died. And he was buried underneath that cross as well to honor him. In 1987, the cross itself was moved along with Colonel Morris to St. Mary's Cemetery, which you may know is south of here near Ewing. And the bottom right is that same cross now at St. Mary's, and there's an inscription on it honoring Daniel Morris. The bottom left are 2 photos of the cross from the building side. You can see there's a plaque on there. Unfortunately, they were taking pictures of people and they didn't walk up and take a picture of the plaque for us. So unfortunately, we don't know exactly what the plaque says. It's so frustrating. So like this bottom center picture, somebody took this because that was their kids in the May Queen procession. And of course, all I'm interested in is what's in the back, right? So, oh well, but thank them for sharing it. Speaking of the May Queen, next slide, we come to the grotto. So this is the last remaining structure-ish thing visible on the campus now. So top left is the grotto in its prime. A grotto is a Catholic shrine built in a rock formation, and with the statue of the Virgin Mary here in the center. There's another little statue to the side, and there's a table, if you know what I mean, on the left as well. And so to the top right, we have May Queen processions taking place at the grotto. And you can see there's a fence around it in the distance, a low fence. And you can see there's a pathway walking up to it as well. So the bottom left is a 1960s photo of the grotto at that time, while it was still in operation. You can see the fence, you can see the grotto, you can see the path. And the bottom right is the grotto today. Okay, fence is still there. There's actually some seating there. The path is still there. The statue's obviously been removed, and but the walkways are still there as well. And it's a really nice quiet, shaded area for contemplation still today, which is very nice. Okay, next slide. So now we're going to go around back and look at the buildings there and then figure out what else we can see while we're back there. So this is the gymnasium / auditorium, a dual-use building built in 1922. You can see the press photo of it in the top left, and you can see the inside in the top right. So it's a gymnasium. There's a basketball net there in the distance, was used for basketball, among other things. And it was also an auditorium where they would have events, and they could also show movies, for example. So the bottom left is a view of the gym with the farm behind. So get used to looking for that farm in the background there. And then the next one over on the bottom is the gym entrance in snow. Weren't any snow blowers then, right? And what's hard to see in the press photo is the ground dropping away there. So the ground not only drops away to each side of the building, but it drops away behind the building as well. So the third picture on the bottom is the back of the gym with a whole nother story there. And people tell us that's where they kept the bicycles for the kids to go riding on, for example. And then the bottom right is a 1959 photo of other uses of the gym. In this case, they had a communion breakfast there, and we have a picture of that. They also used the gym for lunches for the day students who came to school there, for example. So, and top right, you can see the building with its first edition, but not yet with the second edition, with the gym set back, parallel to the front of the building, and then some other stuff coming out the back of the building. So we're going to do that other stuff now. So next slide. So here's that other stuff. So in the top left is two buildings. We're interested in the one on the left that's highlighted. That was the chapel. And you can see where you are because you can see the bell tower there in the top left of that picture, right? So we're behind the building, coming straight out from the building was this chapel. The top story was the chapel. And you can see in the top left, there's windows on the side with two struts on them. And then there's a stained glass window at the end with the 3 pieces on it. And so if you look at the interior view in the bottom left, that's exactly what you see. So you see the chapel, the large stained glass window behind the altar, and then the other stained glass windows on the side, each of which had a louvered window that opened to bring some air in. And on the right side, you see again a family photo, and that's the side of the chapel. That's those windows. That's that louvered opening, letting the air in behind. Okay. Then there's that other building. So next slide. So this is a utility building. The kids knew it as the laundry building because the top story was the laundry, and there's lots of cloth going back and forth to that building. The bottom story was a bakehouse, a boiler house, and a very large chimney and power for the facility as well. So in the top right, you can see chimney and you can see the water tower behind. So we use those to orient ourselves in pictures. And in the bottom right, so this is sort of a calibration. What do you think you see here, right? So that's the farm in the distance. So we're looking east. To the right is that gymnasium building coming in with the cross on the peak. And to the left is the utility building. So somebody shot this from inside the main building to get this view. Next slide. Okay, this is the best picture we have of the back of the building. You're welcome, courtesy of the Hopewell Museum. So the top left picture there. So does this make sense to you now, right? So you're looking at a smokestack. That's the utility building. You're looking at a rectangular building behind it with the cupola on the top. That's the utility building. That's the laundry. You look behind that, you see a piece of a stained glass window. That's the chapel extending out from the main building. And then behind that, you see the bell tower on top. So this all makes sense, right? Isn't that great? And then on the left is that side of the main building and projecting back. And on the right is the echoing side of the other side of the building, and then the first addition that was added over on that side. So in the bottom left is a 1973 photo of that area from behind. And what you really notice here, chapel on the right, chapel windows, you're used to seeing them now. And then straight ahead is the fire escapes behind the building. So you can see the verticals or the diagonals on the right as the stairway came down from each level to level. Scaffolding kind of structure, not very fancy structure. In the bottom right, you see the fire escapes behind the addition. And in 1973, they had filled them in more. And they'd actually put windows in them at the bottom level. So there's a lot going on behind here that we don't know much about. Next slide. Okay. So we do not have any other photos of the back of the building, establishing photos of what this building looked like from a distance from the back. It's very frustrating. So we have to figure it out in bits and pieces. So for example, in the bottom left, this is the entrance to the school from the playground in the back of the building. And the people who went there tell us this. And you can see the stonework for the first level. You see the windows above. Those windows are square. They don't have arches above them. So that's another clue. It's the back of this building. Above, we have some kind of diagonal ramp going up to an entrance portal on the second floor. Do know what this is, but it's somewhere here in the back of the building. And then in the bottom right, similar kinds of things. This is the back of the building. There's some statues. There's a two-story extension off to the right that may be the corridor to the main building. But again, we're still trying to put together the pieces here. Next slide. So the playground. Okay, so again, we can experiment with orienting ourselves. So top left, what do you see in the background, right? It's all really obvious now. There's a smokestack, there's a water tower, and there's a building in front of the smokestack. That's the utility building. That's the water tower. We're looking parallel to the back of the building. We're looking north towards Hopewell here. And here's a piece of playground equipment. And then in the distance behind the water tower are some smaller buildings, and we'll come back to them in a sec. So the top center picture, in the distance in the center there is the farm. So we're looking east with our back to the building. This is the playground. There's swings parallel to the main building. There's a lot of asphalt back there. And we can see more of this across the center pictures, the middle pictures here. Kids playing in the snow, building forts in the snow. Kids playing basketball at the edge of the asphalt, those kinds of things. So this is how we're piecing together the story here to try and make sense of it. And then across the bottom are 1970 photos. So again, you can see the farm in the distance. You can see how the asphalt ended where the swings are. And you can see other playground equipment as well. Okay. Next slide. The pavilion. See, I told you about the pavilion earlier. So here we are. So the top left is the boys' side pavilion. And this structure was a play area, but it was also a place to assemble the kids for taking nice photos or for going on a trip or something like that. So this is one of those options up here. Bottom left, you can see the pavilion in the context of the building behind, so you have a sense of how far back it was. And in the bottom right, these are kids at the pavilion with the playground behind. So again, this is how we sort of make sense of these things. Next slide. So look at the top right picture here. So is this the swing set that we saw before? No, it's not on asphalt. And there's that big water tower behind, and there's a building to the right. This is the girls' side swing. This is the swing behind the other side of the building, the north side of the building. And there's boys and girls swinging on it. Sorry, what can I say? And so, yes, there was a play area on this north side of the back of the building as well. So the pictures on the left are the girls' side pavilion, and you can see smaller structures behind, which are storage structures. And the people who are kids there don't remember anything about them for obvious reasons. The bottom right is also a ball field. So there were fields beyond this main area of St. Michael's out towards the farm where kids played ball and other games as well. Next slide. So now let's go inside. Okay, so what did it look like inside the building? So the picture on the left is looking out the main entrance. You can see the statue with a whole bunch of stuff growing around it in the distance. And you can see this very clear checkerboard floor design, which we're going to see echoed around the building. So on the right, for example, is an undated picture, but that checkerboard floor is really, really visible. Next. Now we have some color photos, 1958, 1960. This is the left side is the main hallway with the statue and people posing. You get a sense of colors in the space. And the right side is the second floor, also decorated for Christmas. And again, you get some sense of color here. Next slide. So here's the chapel. The interior of the chapel, you can see it in more detail now. So there are exits at the front off to the side that you can see from the exterior pictures. And you can get a sense of the ceiling here as well, the decorative details on the ceiling. Top right, chapel decorated for a baptism. Bottom right is a color photo of the chapel. So it's a two-story space. So you can see in the back there's a balcony coming across. So that's a second story entrance from the rest of the building to the back of the chapel there. And you can see the decorations along the walls, and in the front corner of that, you can see the decorations on the front of the pews as well. So next slide. So now we look at the facilities for the kids. Okay. So we've been looking at a whole bunch of pictures from various sources, official pictures from publications of the Catholic Church. We've been looking at pictures from the collection of the Hopewell Museum. We've been looking at lots of pictures that people kindly contributed because they thought they were taking family photos, but it turned out they were taking historic pictures for us. Weren't they nice? So here we have 3 specific sources of official pictures of what it looked like inside the building for the facilities for the kids. And what you have to remember is 200, 300, 400 kids. This is military type wars, camp dorming facilities kind of thing. So the pictures on the left, the picture in the top left here, and we'll see a bunch of these, come from the Messenger, which was a publication of St. Michael's. And they ran a special issue with photos inside the building showing off their facilities. And we have no date for it, unfortunately, but think early 1900s. So that's the earliest ones we have. Then in the bottom left is a picture from 1948. 1948 was the 50th anniversary of St. Michael's. So the church made a Jubilee publication decorated with lots of pictures like this. So we'll be seeing those as well. The Hopewell Museum has the best copy of this publication. So we're using those here too. And then the pictures on the right that are marked SOSF are from the Sisters of St. Francis. They have an archive with lots of photos that were taken basically by professional photographers, took posed pictures of various sorts that made things look good. And then these were saved and archived. So take this all with a grain of salt, okay? These are publicity photos, basically. But you get a sense of what's going on. So upper left, the nursery department, early 1900s, stacks of babies lined up, right? Bottom left, the nursery in 1948, again, stacks of babies. Line them up. And then bottom on the right are pictures that are a little bit closer to what we would hope to see in a nursery, which are from the sisters. Next slide. The classrooms, okay? So all along the top is from that Messenger publication. This is early 1900s. On the left is the kindergarten group. So stacks of kids in chairs. In the middle is the girls sewing. So the older girls are learning to sew. It sure looks like they're in some kind of basement area there. And then in the top right is the classroom for highest grade. So very often they combine 7th and 8th grade. And so here's students studiously working away, boys in ties. So you can date things about whether those boys wear ties as well, right? Bottom left is the classroom in 1948, the 50th anniversary. This begins to look more like we expect a classroom to look. And then bottom right is just a fun picture from the sisters with the kids in the music art playroom. Next slide. The library. Not a whole lot to say about this. The Elks renovated this room as a library in 1948. And top right is a official picture with young men working hard in the library with their ties on, of course. And the bottom right is this beautiful picture that somebody photographed at the closing of St. Michael's to illustrate the closing. It said, "The books may be gone, but there's still a Bible there lingering on the table, illuminating the space." It's just a beautiful piece of work. I just love what they did with that. So next slide, the dining room. Okay, so left to right. Left is 1922 photos when they renovated the dining room. So this is the dining room, the best it's going to look with all the tableware out and everything. Same picture, one from a newspaper, one from the sisters. The middle is the 1948 photos. The top is the toddler dining room, whatever that means. The bottom is the children's dining room, which actually looks to be a different space. And then on the right are undated photos of kids in the dining room. And you can see there's a boys' side and there's a girls' side. The bottom right picture, we're looking at the boys' side and the girls are over there on the other side through the virtual wall. And the top right is the girls' side, as you can see. Okay. Next, the kitchen. Don't know much about this. We have this one photo from 1948. Here's the kitchen with some sisters working there. And the bottom right is a great family photo. Apparently the boy was on pot washing duty on Parents' Day and mom came along to help dry, I guess, I don't know. But it sure looks like the same space. Again, you get some sense of color. But on the other hand, this is not an industrial kitchen that feeds 400 people. So what that was, again, we just don't know. Next, dorms. OMG, right? So top left, this is one of our many dormitories in the early 1900s from that Messenger publication. Lines of beds, nothing but lines of beds, and sure looks like an attic room, right? From the ceiling. Then the middle two pictures, the top is the kindergarten's girl dorm, the bottom is the boys' dormitory. And again, you get a bed, you get a chair, and if you're a girl, a little girl, you get a doll, and that's it. So one of the issues in this kind of environment is how you have personal property, how you have a baseball glove and keep control of it in this kind of environment. So the pictures on the right are press photos, again, from closing time at St. Michael's that show things were slightly different. And we do have a newspaper report that the younger kids were in rooms, 4 beds to a room, and the older kids were in an individual room with a bunk bed. So things clearly changed with the times and with the fewer children. Next, bathrooms. So, oh my gosh. So top left is, again, from that Messenger publication, one of our washrooms. And every child gets their own towel and toothbrush. Wee haw, right? Very exciting. So you see, stacks and stacks of wash facilities and cubbies, I guess. And it's in a utility rooms because there's equipment in the back as well. So again, we don't exactly know. And then on the bottom, on the right side, is a later washroom, 1948. So even more sinks and some mirrors and maybe some stuff on the wall in the background, I'm not sure. And they also combined it with a picture of the dental clinic. St. Michael's did have very regular visits by dentists, by doctors. The Hopewell doctor, Dr. Pearson, who was in Hopewell for ages and ages, took care of the kids at St. Michael's and took care of them through epidemics and all that kind of thing. And barbers also volunteered to come and cut hair at St. Michael's. So there was a lot of that kind of thing going on that we're just starting to figure out. Next slide. So we're going to finish with the cemetery and the farm, and then I'll tease you with some stuff that's still in the works, okay? So St. Michael's Cemetery, as I said, it was below the main building against the tree line there, a space that was 300 by 50 feet. There were it was a grove, 2 rows of trees with the cemetery in between. And the children in the cemetery were reinterred at that same Celtic cross at St. Mary's Cemetery. And that's documented in among other places, the New Jersey Graveyards book that I reference here, the Mercer County edition. And if you go stand there today, you'll see what you see in these bottom 2 pictures. So there's still is rows of trees, a tree line, and a gap to more trees. So you can get a sense of where that cemetery was. Okay, next slide. So what about the children? Well, we have very little oral history about this. The children were not playing in the cemetery. They were discouraged from going there. There were not formal events in the cemetery that were documented or anything like that. But people do remember some grave markers. People do remember a larger cross at the street end of this cemetery area. But who was buried there and how many? Well, the book that I just mentioned says that there were more than 100 of them buried and then moved to the Celtic Cross at St. Mary's Cemetery. But we also luckily have a wonderful newspaper article, again, while the building was being closed. And that reporter really had unprecedented access to the building and people talking honestly with him and telling the whole story, apparently. So they were told that records show 221 babies are recorded as being buried in that cemetery between 1920 and 1944. Okay. And they were told that obviously there were children before that, but those older records had been lost. So that's our current estimate for what was in this graveyard. And the article also mentions that there was one priest there buried there as well. So if you go to St. Mary's and you go to this cross, one side honors Daniel Morris, and then 2 other sides you can see pictures of here, honor the children who were buried there and honor this one priest as well. Okay. So there was a concern, particularly when they put that big statue in, was this hallowed ground, were there graves here and all that kind of thing. But we think we understand that. So next slide. So the farm is a whole nother topic, and gee, that would make a great talk someday. But luckily we have a whole bunch of pictures from the Clevjay family, which give you a sense of what life was like at the farm. So here's some 1940s pictures on the left, the hay wagon at the bottom, the horses pulling equipment at the top. The top right shows that complex of buildings, that farmyard in the distance. And the bottom right is a tractor in the snow. So where is this? Well, there's this water tower in the back, so we sort of have an idea of what we're looking at here, right? So next slide. So this is the farmyard itself, the barns themselves. So the left side is 1940s pictures. So you see kids and workers there, and all of these buildings. They had all this different stock there, all these different animals there. They had storage for grain and all the rest. A lot of working space here, a lot of cows being milked. So lots and lots of buildings. And on the right, the farm was still operating into the 80s because even though the original building had been demolished, the farm was still going. The Cloveday family rented the farm from the church and was particularly growing grain there still. So we'll come back to that in a sec. Next slide. So what were they doing on the farm? This report just showed up, thanks again to the Sisters of St. Francis. This is 1914 annual report of all the animals there at the farm and their value, and the amount of grain and vegetables and fruit grown and the dairy products generated. And it's just mind-blowing what they had here. So all these different kinds of animals, all these different kinds of birds, but mostly chickens. Hay and grain grown, 4 different types. This long list of vegetables, limas, egg space plants, and more things like that. 7 different kinds of fruits grown on the property. And then the numbers at the body for dairy products, 50,000 quarts of milk. And this is hand pumping, right? This is 1914. That's a lot of work. Get up before day and you do your first pump, and then before you go get dinner, you do your second. Just amazing the amount of logistics that these people did with not very large staffs. Just astounding. So I want to thank some people and then give you some bonus material here at the end. So thanks especially to the DNR Greenway, who helped me understand the preserve and the properties there, for the archives of the Hopewell Museum and the Sisters of St. Francis. A lot of these family photos came from a Facebook group, of St. Michael's Facebook group for people who went to St. Michael's, and they've been wonderfully helpful and supportive in providing photos and helping me understand photos. A bunch of interviews I just want to highlight: the Monteleone family, the Haggerty O'Brien family, the Colbert and McAlinden family, and Percy Keith in particular, who provide a lot of information. And we have more interviews than that. Rick Cleveday, who provided the farm information, a whole nother talk. And a bunch of other, whoops, went the wrong way, this way. And a bunch of other photographers, Bill Frenchie, Bob Gantz, Peter Gantz, Craig Taylor, and Jim Davidson, all of whom thought to take pictures way back then when nobody else thought about taking pictures, and saved them and shared them, bless their hearts, so that we have these pictures of these buildings at this time that we just otherwise don't have any pictures of. Just wonderful. And I do want to recommend Jack Keppel's talk for the library in 2016 that we recorded, and is up on the Historical Society YouTube. And he gives more of an understanding of the sort of social history of the times, why orphanages were created, what happened, and then why the decline and why it had to be demolished then later. So I do want to recommend that. So some bonus material, because we have some time, little time. This just came in. On the left is admission paperwork from 1927 for Andy. You know him as Andy's Amico, Andy Monteleone, who was at St. Michael's. And top left is his father signing him in and agreeing to pay $10 a week for the 3 children. And the bottom left is the sheet for Andy himself, his age when he signed in, and on the back is when he left the facility. Okay. So the Catholic Charities does have this kind of material. So if you have ancestors at St. Michael's, you can get in touch with them and get this kind of material, which is amazing. Next slide. These are the reports I mentioned earlier from the Sisters of St. Francis, just to get a sense of what these are. So the report on the left is the mission list. So it's the sisters that were there, what they were doing, particularly what grade they were teaching, on what their role was. So we have annual reports like this for an extended period during St. Michael's, and particularly after the period that the US Census stops. So we have more numbers there. The paper on the right is the school list from the sisters. So this was an annual report of what was happening at the school. So in this case, it lists the grades, the teachers, the number of boys, the number of girls, the number of pupils, and talks about other roles of the other sisters. So there's lots and lots of information available. This just came in. I have not yet posted it. It's on the list. So stand by, please. So that's the story. Thank you very much. And I'm kind of thorough. So questions, and Zoom people, please post questions, and they'll get in the chat, and they'll be relayed up here. Yeah. You know anything about the administrative structure? Not a whole lot. I mean, we have the names of roles, you know, the Sister Superior and lists of people working in the offices, basically, and that kind of thing. And we know which sister was in the bakery and which sister was mending and that kind of thing. But nothing more than that, really. Yeah. Day students, yeah. Yeah, so the day students were part of the parochial school, and all the kids were educated together. There was, yeah. Well, the day students and the orphanage students came to this separate area, which was the classroom building, and that's where they had their classes together, and they played in the playground behind together. They actually ate lunch separately because the day students brought their lunch, and the resident students went to their lunchroom for lunch. But other than that, yeah, they were together. And there was a PTA that sponsored events for the kids as well, that kind of thing. Yeah. So, my grandmother was yeah. Yes. And those children all get educated along the other children as well. Yeah. Yeah, so the question is about the farm and the kids and things. So let me answer that a little more broadly. So yeah, we have records from the census of who was resident at the farm and who was working there. So your family is on that list over time, and you can find those census records on the website. They did live separately from the building. They had their own house, and later they actually lived off site. And children from the orphanage helped in the farm, particularly in the summer. And I assume the farm people ate some of the farm food, and some of the farm food did go to the orphanage, and some of it was sold. So exactly what happened there is not totally clear. But yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. Yep. Bill. You mentioned stop. Yes. What? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. The census is only revealed a certain distance back in time. The more recent censuses are not public. So the most recent census that has been revealed is 1950. And that was just revealed recently. In the back, yes, sir? Hi. Yes. Yeah, the school curriculum and industrial school. So yeah, I mean, you saw them teaching sewing, for example, but I haven't seen strong emphasis on the trades, though Rockwell, for example, brought in equipment to teach the kids woodworking and metalworking and that kind of thing. We have some very early details on curriculum, but it doesn't say much about, again, trade kind of education. So we don't know much. Yeah, thank you. Yes, sorry, in the back.
Maybe I missed it, but who was staff, made the decision to staff the school, and where or who did Catholic Charity acquire the land from?
Yeah, so I skipped all of that in the interest of time. So the beginnings of the St. Michael's was motivated by the then Bishop of Trenton, who saw the need for this because, among other things, an orphanage for small children up in New Brunswick was getting full. And so he was the one who started the fundraising. And he was the one who originally bought parcels of land out here, which were farms at the time. And then he died before the building was completed. So his successor then completed the building. And so yeah. So when I post the write-ups about this, I have all of that in much more detail. But yes, I skipped it today in the interest of time.
For the small thing, when the slide came out of the library, there was a portrait of someone. Then who was that? Or was that in?
No, the portrait in the library was the Grand Elk who sponsored the Elks renovating the library. And I knew your trivia question, so I'm impressed. Yes, sir.
Did they have any programs for adopting these children? Or I mean, they had 300 at one point.
Yeah.
Did they give them out to families? What happened?
There was a big push to adopt the children. And how well did that work? It's very hard to tell. Some children were there the entire length of time. There's no question about it. There was a process of dressing the kids up and having them parade for potential parents to adopt them. And some of that did happen, but without, much more access to the records, we really don't know. But they talked about it a lot. They really did want to encourage that, absolutely. Is there something?
Where did the children go on from here?
Yes, so where did the children go afterwards? Yeah, so it's kindergarten through 8th grade. And then what? Right. So some of them stuck around and worked on the farm and that kind of thing. Some of them went off in sort of apprentice type roles in various places. We know of at least one family where they placed her in a Catholic church near the shore, in a Catholic school near the shore, and found her a job that helped pay for that and that kind of thing. So there was starting in 8th grade after grammar school. Yeah, but most kids didn't go any further than grammar school at the time. We're talking early 1900s, first half of the 1900s. So yeah, and there was a whole judicial formal process around this that I'm ignoring as well. There was a role overseer of the poor in each county or town or township responsible for the poor. And they would work with the judges and go through the process of removing kids from the parents if that had to be done, or taking in orphan kids. And that's how kids were placed in these facilities. And then there was a process for removing the kids from the facilities as well. And there was a board in charge of that. And we don't know many details about that, unfortunately. So yeah, it was a mess. Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah.
It seems to have a lot of babies. Where did all these babies come from? Where they actually work?
Yeah, where'd all these babies come from? Yeah, a lot of orphans at the beginning, and then a lot of parents who already had 2 kids and now they've had a third and they just can't care for them. I was just one example today, the mother died in childbirth. 3 older kids and now a baby. So who's going to take care of them? So they end up in this kind of facility. Yeah. A lot of disease, a lot of epidemics, it's just a very horrible time. Yes. 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 Why wasn't there a better use of this building than tearing it down? Good question. We don't know. We don't know. I mean, the church was looking at this huge cost, didn't want to carry the cost, didn't want to renovate the building, didn't see an obvious use for it, tore it down. Yeah. Did you have some questions?
Yeah,
Doug, we have some questions from Zoom. One person is asking if you know who the architect was.
The architect. Yeah, we know the architect of the last edition on the south side, and I don't have it off the top of my head, but there's a picture of the architect's drawing in this presentation when I was talking about that. And yeah, I think we know some more as well, but not off the top of my head.
Okay. One other person asked if there are any plans to have a walking tour of the site. Is there a similar program for the Skillman Park site where the developmental facility was?
Yeah, 2 good questions. Are there going to be tours of the site? We've done a couple with the Historical Society and the museum and the Catholic Church. I imagine there'll be more in the future, but there's no current plans. And then the Skillman site, I don't know anything about, so I really can't answer that question. Shall we keep going? Yes, sir.
how many of the children were truly orphans without parents and how many of them were given up with
Yeah, how many were true orphans? We don't have that data, unfortunately. The church was very clear there were no more true orphans by the mid-50s. So it really was a difficult times, difficult disease, difficult medicine kind of thing. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I use the term orphanage, St. Michael's Orphanage, in a generic sense for that whole period of time. There were not actually orphans there, but there were a whole bunch of other kids there. And you saw the numbers declined over time. So yeah, up to the end, there were resident children there, and there was the school going there as well. No, it was never that point. There were always kids there. Some of those kids earlier were true orphans, and others had been abandoned in various ways. Later, still a whole bunch of kids, but no actual strictly orphans there. But there were plenty of other kids resident there for that time while the school was also running. Yeah. Okay, sorry about that. Yes. Oh, so Catholic schools came to volunteer at St. Michael's. Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, because you find different civic groups appearing to help and get toys for the kids for Christmas and decorate and have events. So yeah, bringing in other kids from other places makes sense as well. Bob?
Yes, I have a couple more questions.
More Zoom.
Were you able to interview former workers?
Former workers? Yeah, at least one.
And the other person asks,
we did interview at least one.
Okay, great. There appears to be, okay. Any comments on the stream along the edge? There appears to be some markings on trees near what would be a swimming hole and any notable alumni.
Really? Really? Okay. So, yes, so the Stony Brook runs through it. And there must have, some part of that must have been a swimming pool, but we don't know.
Mhm.
There is talk of kids going to bathe and going just to get wet because it's hot in the summer. But yeah, we don't have locations for that, unfortunately. I'm sorry, what was the second part of that?
Any
Notable-
notable
Yeah, I
people.
don't know about notable alumni.
Okay.
But if you know more, you know where to come and tell us all about it, please. So shall we call it quits? It's 1/4 after. I'll talk to you later. Thank you. Thank you all.